Welcome to another episode of the Basecamp. I am Ann Shinton, Agency Director here at Ascend Inbound, and I've got John Fuller, Web Developer Extraordinaire. Today we're going to talk about SEO in 2020.
I can pretty much boil it down to it's SEO in 2019, except the search engines are smarter.
Okay, and what do you mean by that?
Well, their algorithms have gotten better, and they're designed for the end user, so it's less keyword focused in the algorithm, and it's more focused on the user's experience, the buyer, and their actual behavior, and the buyer's journey, whether it's somebody in the decision phase or somebody in the post-purchase phase.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. And you've touched on something really important when you talked about user experience. And another big term that's being thrown out right now with SEO is user intent.
Yes.
A good example of that I read earlier today was if you're searching online for a recipe, for example, right, and you're searching for a quick recipe with kale. And I don't know why you'd ever want to cook anything with kale in it, but if you did, you would want it quickly, I guess. And so if you're searching for quick recipes for kale and you click on the first result, for example, and it shows you that the cook time is an hour and a half. Well, that's not a quick recipe. That is bad user intent mapping, right? But perhaps the person who wrote that article wrote quick recipe for kale in the title of the page to try to get those clicks. Well, Google is getting smarter about that. And so what it's going to do instead is not necessarily look at people who are just trying to, sort of game the system by matching their title to whatever the person is searching for, but actually display the content that has what the user is searching for. So it would show the recipe that actually only took, 10 minutes or something like that. Instead as one of the top results.
Another point to touch on is like the user intent is to find it quickly, but they're also, Google knows most of them are looking on their phone. Mm-hmm. Like for that kale example, the yummy kale example, they're probably in their kitchen with a bag of kale and they need something quick because they're like me and they're just looking on their phone. They're like, yeah, man, my spouse told me to cook this. What am I going to do? And that's like fitting into the user intent is, meeting the user where they're at.
Right.
And so a big thing for 2020 is to have your website optimized for mobile because most users are on it, especially if it's, a B2C company. Yep. It's just got to be mobile first. The whole site's got to be designed mobile first, and that's being taken account for SEO. So
absolutely. I mean, Google's definitely giving favor to sites that are mobile first, that are loading super fast, because if you're on a mobile device and you're not somewhere that has Wi-Fi, you got to make sure those pages are loading quickly, or else the user's going to leave. They're not going to stick around to wait for the page to load. Yeah. I guess another thing I wanted to mention, and there's a lot, right? There's so much. SEO is an entire universe that, you can learn more about through Google search. But it got really meta right there. But anyway, another thing that I wanted to talk about too was this idea of the zero position zero position listing.
Yeah, explain that more.
So like if you search for something in Google, the first result of the page is the first listing, right? But we want to break it down even further and get to the zero listing. So examples of the zero listing is something that's called a featured snippet. So, for example, we have a client, Supersod, and they have a great example of this right now, how to level your yard. And if you search for how to level your yard in Google search, the instructions for how to level your yard actually show up on the Google results page. So they don't have to click into the article. They just see those quick instructions, and they see actually a video that shows you how to do it that they can click into right within the results page without having to go to the website. Of course, there is still that link to where if they wanted to learn more, they could click in to view the page, but they still get a basic overview of those instructions without having to dig any further. So that's something that you want to make sure you're looking into, making sure that you're optimizing for featured snippets, making sure that the architecture of your site, and John could speak to this way better than I could, but that it's just coded really cleanly. That's another thing that lends to fast page load times, but it also makes it easier for Google to read the content on those pages as well, because Google's just not going to waste any time trying to dig through stuff to get to the answers that their users are looking for.
That's right. Your website has to be like a bridge between a machine and the user. So it's got to be serving up a data structure that makes sense to a machine, but it's got to be presenting it to the user where it's beneficial for them.
For sure.
And that's one of the things that you have to be careful in the way you structure your page and the way you structure your content, getting technical, the way you structure your bullet lists and your heading tags. It all needs to make semantic sense. And it needs to make semantic sense not only for data structure, but also for screen readers. One thing that Google is rewarding with SEO and promoting in their algorithms is websites with, ADA compliant code. And so that's another big thing in SEO is, following what Google's rewarding.
Right, 100%. And then sort of speaking or on the same topic of screen readers is optimizing for voice search as well, making sure that you're considering what people might speak into the microphone of their phones to search for quickly instead of actually typing things out. That is only going to become more and more prevalent as people become less reliant on typing and more just tell me the answer right now. So anything else on SEO you want to talk about before we wrap up this episode of the Basecamp?
Pillar content.
Okay. Yeah. One of the biggest things we probably should talk about.
Exactly. We saved the best for last. That's
true.
What we were really doing.
That's true. Yeah. So pillar content is this idea around creating an authoritative presence for your brand or for your company around certain topics. And you only want to have a few of these topics that you are the authority of for your brand. But once you establish what those topics are, you want to craft content around those specific topics. So what you're going to do is you'll have a piece of pillar content, so a very long form page, a very in-depth article, with chapters and lots of good visuals and helpful links, and that just establishes you as the expert on that particular topic. And then what you're going to do after that is create a lot of other pages or blog posts throughout your site that link back to this authoritative piece of content. And then, of course, beyond that, you want to make sure that main pillar piece of content is also receiving backlinks from external websites as well, so that you can build up authority for that specific topic.
And that all kind of, goes back to user intent. Users, just think about when you're using a search engine, you're not looking for a sales pitch. You're looking for an expert.
Right.
And that's how Google has orchestrated this, and I think it's for the buyer's best interest, and consequently our best interest as companies, that people just want an expert. They want to be informed. They don't want to be sold to, and
they want the answer pretty quickly too. I mean,
exactly.
they don't. Patience is wearing thin in our society, so they want to get to that answer. They want to get to the bottom of it. They don't want to cut through any nonsense. It's
and if you meet the user where they're at, you're gonna sell more.
For
and
sure.
You're gonna succeed. So.
It's the inbound way.
That's right.
All right. Well, thank you so much for tuning in, guys. This is another episode of the Basecamp, and hope to see you for the next episode.